Hello everyone, welcome to AI Anytime channel. In this video, we are going to see that how we can build MCP in Pydantic AI. So Pydantic AI is a framework that helps you design and develop production grade generative AI application. I really like Pydantic AI. There are a lot of other frameworks and libraries available, to help you build Gen AI systems, starting from LangChain, Llama Index, Haystack. Those are a bit old. Now we also have seen a lot of new, you know, frameworks or libraries that have been created that basically uses some kind of protocols like OpenAI agents, SDK, Google A2A, agent to agent, and of course most of them work very similar, guys. The naming conventions have been changed, but most of them work very similar. So we're gonna use Pydantic AI to build MCPs, model context protocols. So we're gonna create a client and a server, an MCP client and MCP server, and use it, of course, and everything within Pydantic AI. That's the agenda of this video, and we're not gonna use any other host or clients like Claude AI, Claude for desktop, or any other like Goose or Cursor or Windsurf. I want to use Pydantic AI and of course do something with MCP. That's the agenda. And also this video is going to be part of the MCP playlist series. I already have 15 videos on MCP. So if you're a beginner, I'll first recommend you watch those other videos, and then of course you can watch these videos on Pydantic AI plus MCP. Let's jump in and see how we can combine both and build some with some kind of capabilities here, right? So if you look at here on my screen, of course I am on Pydantic AI documentation. As I said, right, it says production grade app with generative AI, and really it's really good because it has a few things that other frameworks don't have. And of course you can read over here, they have Python centric design, logfire integration for logging. Of course we have Langsmith and whatnot with LangChain as well, and most of the frameworks they have their own, but I really like their dependency injection systems, which is extremely important. Offers an optional dependency injection system to provide data and services to your agents. This is useful for testing and eval driven iterative development, which is really good, right? They have graph support, which they came recently, Pydantic graph, and of course these are some of the examples why you should use Pydantic AI. Now you can use any other if you want to use, right? That's not a problem. Okay. It's just depend you are solving a problem, right? That's what you should do. I have created a Notion template and of course exported that in a PDF format just to give you a walkthrough. Now if you look at here, what we're gonna do, you have a prompt. Okay, we have a client, Pydantic AI client, and then we'll have of course a server that will have some tools, that will have some kind of agents orchestrations, and that will basically generate a response given you a prompt. That's the idea, right? So we have a layer, in between. You can see that sits within Pydantic AI, right? That's what we are doing. Now there are two different types. If you have watched my previous videos, in the MCP playlist or any other YouTube videos or tutorials that you have gone through, you will find out there are MCP server on HTTP and MCP server standard input output. These are the high level categorization, right, of the architecture when you talk about model context protocol, which was first released by Anthropic. Now if you look at their connection methods, if you are using the server one, via HTTP, then we're gonna use HTTP plus SSE, which is really insecure in a way, right? It's a glorified HTTP request, and we have already talked about it of the security concern in the previous videos of MCP. But yeah, that's the connection method. If you are using standard input output, that's of course gonna use your local sub process because it's running locally, right? It's not on a remote. So you can see local sub process based for remote production use, local development, quick trials. I'm not a big fan of saying that explicitly, that HTTP plus SSE is not really good for production uses until you have some kind of middleware where you are looking at the security concerns with these kind of connections, right? So if you have that in place, of course feel free to use that. Now communication layer, it's of course it's gonna work on some kind of network async events because it's on remote server, and then this is going to be standard input, standard output, right? And instead of complexity higher, needs endpoints lower because you're running in sub process, like it's using your local processes. I will give link to this document because you can go through it. I just created it for a quick walkthrough, and then we'll go into code and all. Performance comparison. HTTP server anytime initialization time is a bit high because it has to connect with the remote server, and if that server is down, you might face some kind of problems, right? External input output server low, running within sub processes locally. Response time slightly slower than external input output server, which is more faster. Complexity high and complexity low. Now when to use what? Have a simple decision tree. Do you have a remote server? Then use HTTP. Just testing locally, use external input output. So this is a simple document because it's important when I go to the code now, right? Now I'll give this document so you can go through it. If you don't have enough understanding of MCPs, watch my previous videos and then come to this one. Now you can see I am on my VS Code and I have a project folder called project. I created through uv-init project. Okay, that's the command that I recommend you. That let me create a txt file here. Okay, I think we have a readme here. Let me just get rid of. Okay, now the thing is, this is how you should do it. You should do uv-init. I recommend you use uv, which is a dependency manager in Python. Of course, better than pip. We are very familiar with pip, but I will recommend that you can migrate to uv, which is really good, which is faster and easier to manage. So you're gonna do uv-init your project name. Let's say your project name is whatever you want to keep it. You just do uv-init, and the moment you do it, it's gonna create, you know, these files, git ignore files, Python version, and it's gonna create a main.py. It's gonna create a pyproject.2ml where you have listed down all your configuration for this project. You have your name, version, descriptions, and which Python it requires, and also the dependencies. What kind of dependencies it requires to run this project. You can see I have been using async.io, fast MCP, PydanticAI, and python.env because I have my keys in .env file. Now it's going to create readme where I'm writing right now. It's going to create uv.log. Okay, and I have created a requirements.txt where I have listed down all of these: PydanticAI, Python, async.io, and fast MCP. Now once you do that, you're going to create a requirements.txt file. So of course this will be available on my GitHub repository, but you can take it, you can also create yourself requirements.txt, and then just you create a virtual environment. So this is how you create a virtual environment, uv-venv, and then depending on the operating system you are, you can just do venv. I am on Windows, so I'm going to do, of course, PowerShell, so I'm going to just do scripts activate. But if you are on Mac OS or Linux, you have to go into bin folder and then activate from that, source activate, right? Now I'm on Windows, that's why I'm doing this. Now once the venv is activated, you're just going to do uv add -r and requirements.txt. That's it. It's gonna install all your dependencies in this virtual environment and you are good to go. Now what we need is env, right? So in this we need some kind of keys. I'm also using a lot of keys here. So I'm using Notion API. So I have Notion because I want to show you how you can use Notion. So I have Notion. So make sure you put it here. I have been using OpenAI. Let's say OpenAI API key, and yeah, and then you can use any other API keys you want, like Gemini's, Grok, or whatever. Now this is an env file that I have, right? That's it. That's what you need. Now I have a client.py and a server.py. So let me first show you the server.py, which is important. So if you look at here, I have, I have imported all the libraries or dependencies like load.env because I'm gonna interact with the keys, because I'm gonna interact with the models and it will require the API keys, and fast MCP, which is of course Python library to build MCPs, right? And then we have PydanticAI import agent. Now have some kind of logging, that's fine. And then we initiate a server on line 11, fast MCP, which says PydanticAI MCP server. And then here we are creating an agent. You can see it says server_agent. That's how we create a simple agent in PydanticAI. We have an agent that we are using here. You can see the agent thingy. So we have this agent. Now in this agent, we are defining which model to use from which provider. You can see we have defined OpenAI and we are using GPT-4o mini. And then I have a system prompt. Now this system prompt is a bit in English, combination of Hindi and English. So if you are watching this from outside India, or somebody who don't know how to read Hindi, you might not understand this. So what I'm writing here is, let me first tell you in Hindi, like, तू एक हैदराबादी बंदा है, हर रिस्पॉन्स हैदराबादी हिंदी में देना, फुल स्टाइल में, थोड़ा मस्ती, थोड़ा एटीट्यूड, बस हैदराबादी अंदाज में. So what is trying to tell to the agent is that this agent belongs to Hyderabad, India, where I come from, right? And each response should be in Hyderabadi Hindi, because Hyderabadi Hindi had its own charm and glory, right? Because it's really different. The way we speak Hindi in Hyderabad, which is very different than you speak in other part of the country, like mainly in the North India part, right? Which is different. Then we have our own, accent. So it's a bit, it's a bit unique. So that's what I'm trying to tell the agent, that the whatever response it's gonna generate, it has to be in the local accent, regional accent of Hyderabad. That's what I'm trying to say here. Now, this is how we define a tool, guys, right? Because this agent will have access to this tool now, right? Because if you build MCPs, it has tools, it has prompt, it has responses, and so on and so forth, right? So if you look at here, I'm creating a server.tool, @server.tool, it's decorated, server, and .tool. And then what I'm doing here is I'm using an async def function. It's called Hyderabadi answer, and that's a function I'm defining, which of course takes a string, and you can see it says generate a response in Hyderabadi Hindi style. It uses a tool called Hyderabadi answer, and then it is a theme. That theme will come from client. I'll show you that in a little bit. And then that's it. We have some loggers, and then once we run it, it's gonna show that in terminal, like MCP server is getting started. It runs on, you can see it's running on SSC. It's an HTTP plus SSC that we are building. It runs on this particular host and this port, which is on 8000. And then when you close it, it says MCP server is getting stopped. That's what this file does, right? It's server.py. Let's go to client.py. So just give you a view of client.py. Now we're gonna use line number 7. We have to call MCP server HTTP. It has both MCP server, standard input output, and MCP server HTTP. So it had both of it. So I'm now importing that, and then I have some kind of logging. And this is really important because now when you run this server.py, it runs on this particular port, and then /SSC, which is an unique identifier, for the client to know that the server is running. The MCP server is running on this port. Now in this case, we have a client agent. As you can see, we have a client agent, again using a model, and this can be any model, guys. It depends on if you're doing it Llama locally. Make sure that you run it through Docker, or you run it in some port. You can just give that port that you are running. Now I'm using an MCP servers in this. I'm giving this agent an access to this MCP HTTP server, which is defined on line 14, and this is coming from this particular file, right? And then have some system prompt, like just based on the user request, just answer it. And then I have a main client, just an async function. You can see it runs the MCP server, and I'm giving a prompt because you have to give a prompt, right? That's the task that we are giving to this particular server, right? Now of course client, and then client will go to server and say, okay, give me the data. I have to respond back to the user, right? With that data, whatever you were asking. So tell me about famous tourist destinations in Hyderabad, India. That's what I'm asking, to this particular agent. Let's say if you're coming from outside India and you want to explore Hyderabad, or you want to explore Mumbai, Delhi, or any one of our cities, right? You can use these kind of agents that's going to help you generate an answer. And that's what we are doing in this use case, and of course through an MCP framework. That's what we are doing. Now if you just run this, let me show how I'm going to run it. You can see I am on this, I have two terminals, okay, both PowerShell. I can see first I'm gonna do uv run. Okay, let me run this uv run server.py here. The moment I do uv run server.py, you're gonna see it says MCP server chalu kar rahe hain bhai. So it's saying that MCP server has now started, okay, and runs on this uvcon port. You can see it says 127.0.0.1 and 8000. That's where fast API applications runs, right? So it runs over here. Sorry, I clicked it by mistake. Now that is fine. Now if you go to your server is running, now we have to go to our client to run the client. Let's run the client now. So I'm gonna do is uv run client.py. The moment I do uv run client.py, it's gonna establish a connection, right? You can see it's established a connection. It's showing you, let me make it a bit bigger so you can see it. It says connecting to SSC endpoint. This is my SSC, and you can see it gives you, of course, okay, let me first show you request, and it has received endpoint URL. Let me come back here also. So I'm going to show you both, right? So if you look at here, output from the agent, and you can see it's here. Final answer. Here is the Hyderabad style overview of some famous tourist destinations in Hyderabad, India. Charminar, of course, Charminar is one of our most famous monument. It's like a symbol that we have in our city. It is an iconic symbol of Hyderabad. Don't forget to try some local biryanis, guys. The authentic biryani. You go to Sadab or you go to such biryanis in such areas, right? Bawarchi, Sadab, you'll find it a lot. And the famous laddu, which is a sweet thing, near this monument. We have Golconda, of course. It has its own history. You can climb up, Golconda. You can find the entire view, the nearby. We have Hussain Sagar Lake, which is in Sikandrabad. It's the twin city, right? We call Hyderabad and Sikandrabad in Hyderabad. And you can see, go for a boat ride. They have Buddha statue in the middle of the lake, which looks fantastic in the night. Then we have Lad Bazaar, very famous for shopping. Beautiful bangles, you can find out jewelries and so on and so forth. And of course, Ramoji Film City. It's an amazing place. It's not a lot of shootings are going on. So this is how you can create. You can see it, able to access it. Of course, you can if you look at this here, right? Look at the server response. It says output from the agent, right? You can see the tool called Hyderabadi answer. This is the tool called theme, famous tourist destinations in Hyderabad. That's the theme that has been interpreted. When you ask the question basically in a form of prompt, that's what it has been interpreted. And it says, you can see output from the agent, Arey bhai sunna, like what it's trying to. First I will tell you in Hindi, and then of course for few people who have been watching it outside India and who doesn't know Hindi, I'll tell them in English. Output from the agent, अरे भाई सुनना, हैदराबाद का टूर तो एकदम मस्त है, समझा? इधर कुछ फेमस जगह है जो देखने लायक है. पहले तो चार मीनार की बात करते हैं भाई, ये तो हैदराबाद का सिंबल है, वहाँ जाके वो बिरयानी और लैला का चाट खाना नहीं भूलना. ओके. एंड फिर गोलकोंडा फोर्ट है भाई, ऊपर चढ़ जा तो पूरी शहर का नज़ारा देखने को मिलेगा. और सुन, वहाँ का एको भी देखो, ऐसा लगता है जैसे कोई गाना सुन रहा है. हुसैन सागर लेक भी मस्त है, रात को बोट राइड पे जा और वहाँ बुद्धा स्टैच्यू को देखने का मजा ले. अगर शॉपिंग का शौक है तो लाड बाजार का मत भूल, वहाँ की बैंगल्स तो सबकी जान है ना भाई. एक और जगह है रामोजी फिल्म सिटी, वहाँ जाके फिल्म स्टार बनने का फील मिलेगा, अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस है. तो भाई जब भी हैदराबाद आए ये सब जगह विजिट करना, वरना ये तो मिस हो जाएगा. और खाना तो मैं पहले ही बोला, बिरयानी खाना ना भूल, बढ़िया मस्ती करना वहाँ. सो यू कैन सी दिस इज व्हाट इट्स interpreted the theme for the tourist destination, and then we have given the prompt that it has to give in the Hyderabadi accent. So basically it answers in the Hyderabadi accents. So that's how you guys can build a lot of different types of system, guys. Not only this, you can build whatever you want to build, but yeah, very simple boilerplate to start with PydanticAI plus MCP. I'm gonna give you this document, the Notion template that I was showing. Very simple. If you want, go through it. Of course, this code will be available on my GitHub repository. One more thing I want to show you. Let me show you main.py because I have that file here, I remember. Okay. I'll show you one more thing here. You can see I'm using Notion API keys. I'm using Notion. You can see Notion MCP environment. And I'm using you can see this MCPServerStdio input output. A Notion server which is residing here. It's an official Notion MCP server. But that requires your Notion MCP keys, right? And I'm just asking to create a meeting minutes format on a page called MCP. Let me show you that, how you're going to do that. So first of all, you have to go into integrations. So if I go to integrations, you can see I have two integrations on Notions. One is on MCP internal integrations, and then we have N8N, which is also an internal integration. So you have to create an integration. So let me show you. You should have your own workspace. Let's say you have multiple workspace, that will be visible here, or whatever workspace that you want to automate. It's basically for automation, right? Where you want to automatically write a blog post, or you want to do whatever, on Notion, you can do it. Let's say I select AI anytimes Notion, and then I have type internal. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it MCP dummy. And then you click on save. The moment you click on save, go to configuration integration setting. You have to keep this key with you, which is called internal integration secret. You should keep this key somewhere safe. And of course, you can also have comment capabilities, if you have dealing with some use cases, and I've updated it. You can see read content, update content. So the agent can automatically update the content on your Notion pages, right? Now let's say if I come here, and you can see I have an MCP thingy here. Now let's create a new thingy, right? I'm going to call it MCP test, right? And here on my code, let's say I write MCP test. I'm saying create a meeting minutes format on a page called MCP test. So what is gonna do? This agent gonna, of course, this is nothing. This is meeting minutes. You can have a, like, let's say 5 jokes. If you want to create 5 jokes, it can also do that. And now we have to do manual connection here. So you have to click on this and you can find out your integration. So now we have configured MCP dummy. So you have to do MCP dummy. You can see it says connect MCP dummy to this page, and we have this integration capabilities, and you can just confirm it, and then you can just run this and it's gonna do whatever you want to do it, right? So that's what I wanted to do in this video, guys. Wanted to show you that how you can use PydanticAI, of course, to combine that with MCP and build your Gen AI application. So whatever you are trying to build, right? It's one of the video in my MCP playlist. I already have 15 videos in MCP, and we also have the community guys, right, at AI Anytime. We have written a research paper where we have proposed MCP Guardian. That's what I'm going to cover in upcoming videos, where we have proposed how to bring MCP Guardian, which is a middleware, right, in your MCP workflows, whatever you are building, to make MCP secure, right? So I'm going to cover that in upcoming videos. But for this video, if you like it, please hit the like icon. If you haven't subscribed the channel yet, please do subscribe the channel, guys. That motivates me to create more such videos in your future. If you have any doubts, any questions related to this topic or any other thing in general, you can comment down or reach out to me through my social media channels. Find those information on channel banner and channel about us. That's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.